Hey guys, Moms Against Medical Bullying. So if you've never heard of Carl Miller, you should definitely look up some of his videos, because I truly believe that he has some golden arguments. And so I just want to say one thing. I don't think people understand that that the Constitution is actually their contract, and that it's supposed to be ruled in favor of you, the beneficiary. So I want to talk about one case that he mentions about trespassing, since that's a common topic these days, right? Trespassing. These people who aren't wearing masks, these people like me, who aren't wearing masks, are getting arrested. And they're not getting arrested under the guise of not wearing a mask. They're getting arrested under the guise of criminal trespassing, right? Because they're probably told to leave because they're not wearing a mask, but they're told to leave and they're not leaving, so therefore they're getting arrested. So Carl Miller says, look, you need to reach, right? Because I was talking to these people in the supermarket, and I was telling them, you know, if you're forced at your job, maybe you can tell them it is against your religious rights to wear a mask over your face. Since all these businesses decided they're going to change their policies overnight. But they kind of looked at me like I had two heads, like, well, like I don't think I can do that. Well, I mean, nobody's even really trying, seems like. So, anyways, so Carl Miller says, you need to reach. Understand, we're not talking about whether you are in a religious group or not. What we're talking about here is, are you an American, and do you have rights? What they are talking about here is that the religious group exercise their rights timely, and he's talking about a case that he mentioned previously. Okay, so let's move forward. I just wanted to say that real quick. So even though these cases might be for religious groups, you don't have to be a religious group. You're an American, you have rights, period. So I want to talk about Shuttlesworth versus City of Birmingham, case 373 U.S. 262 from 1963. So he says, this is another unique religious case. In this case, 6 ministers were accused of inciting riot and otherwise create a disturbance. Is my lighting? My lighting's weird. There we go. Okay. They were accused of disturbing the peace. They had a sit down, and this case came down in 1962. The city said they needed to have a license to have a public gathering. It went to Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, no, you don't have to have a license for the exercise of this First Amendment right to freely assemble. The gist of the case is that Negro ministers were convicted in the Alabama State Court of aiding and abetting in violation of criminal trespass, a criminal trespass ordinance in Birmingham, Alabama. A criminal trespass ordinance, right? Under what, right? So, the only authority on anyone... Wait, no, I'm reading the wrong thing. Sorry. Here we go. The only evidence against them was to the effect that they had incited 10 Negro students to engage in a sit-in demonstration at a white lunch counter as a protest against racial segregation. Okay? We are being segregated. So, you know, separating the masked people from the non-masked people, at least at some places. You know, for me, it was Little Caesars. So, yeah. So basically it said, you're black, you can't sit at this table. And because you're sitting here and we told you to leave, you're, you know, we're going to charge you with criminal trespassing. You know, just like with the mask. They're saying, oh, you're in this store, but you don't have a mask on. So we're going to tell you to leave. And if you don't leave, you're going to be charged with criminal trespassing, right? So the court held that on the case of Peterson versus the City of Greenville, 373 U.S. 244 in 1963, that the convictions of those 10 students for criminal trespass were constitutionally invalid. Since those convictions had been set aside, it follows that these petitioners did not incite, aid, or abet any crime, and therefore the convictions of these petitioners must be set aside. Just like I truly believe that those who go to court, or who have to go to court for this mask ordinance issue, I believe the same thing would happen. Now, basically what they were claiming was their constitutional right to freely assemble. The city was claiming that they had to have a license to put on a demonstration, which they didn't have. And they were charging them with a criminal trespass for not having a valid license to freely assemble or protest. Now, in our situation, what they're trying to say is, I don't even know what they would say in front of a judge. Yeah, she's criminal trespassing. Well, how was she criminal trespassing? Well, she didn't have a mask on. Well, judge, a mask is against my First Amendment right. I don't wear a mask. It's against my religion, against my conscience. And also they violated my civil rights to have access to goods, to equally have access to goods, based on my religion. So Shuttlesworth versus Birmingham said that if the state does convert your right into a privilege and charge a license and fee for it, you can ignore that license and fee and engage in that right with impunity. It is very important for you to understand, first, your Constitution is the supreme law of the land, and that you have the right, and that right shall not be infringed. It's supposed to be enforced in favor of you, the clearly intended and expressly designated beneficiary. It's very important that you understand that no state may convert that right into a privilege and issue a license and fee for it. And if they do, Shuttlesworth says you can ignore the license and engage in that right with impunity. So I can engage in my right to not wear a mask over my face. I can engage in my right to go into a store, right? If they say get out and they don't get out, and then you get arrested, then you have to go to court and fight out your rights there. But I believe that we can win, and I think people should, anybody who's having to deal with going to court, definitely look up Carl Miller, because he gives you all the case numbers and arguments for things, and he developed a special argument that you can kind of apply to anything.